Welcome to Iris After Hours.
Casual conversations with inspirational speakers off the clock.
Well, I am so excited. We have our inaugural shooting of our first podcast for Iris Media. I'm your host, Nathan Kotzur, with my wonderful co-host, Crystalyn.
Hello.
And it's very fitting that our very first guest on our very first podcast is none other than the founder and leader of Iris Global and my spiritual mama.
She's literally my mother.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing.
The wonderful, most generous, fantastic Heidi Baker.
Oh,
Heidi.
This is so fun.
Oh.
I love you guys.
Love you too.
This
Welcome to our
Thanks.
first podcast. This is so super exciting.
I'm so happy you guys just came up with this concept and you're all involved and family's involved. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're in the country, and you actually have the time to record it.
That's true.
Which is a small miracle in and of itself, right?
Yeah, I'm excited because I'm here for Azusa Now, the call, and
Oh yes,
it
that's
was
this
just with
Saturday.
Revival Alliance and at Mott tonight, and it just worked out so well. And
Fantastic. And can you feel in the city, like we're in LA, shooting in LA, can you feel what's happening?
There's so much intensity in the city. We had a meeting before we came here. We were meeting with some of our team at the Americana down there in Glendale.
Oh yeah, that's our
And there were no exaggeration, we ran into about 50 people stopped. They were treasure hunting. So they were looking for people they could pray over and prophesy
hilarious.
over. And they kept finding us. So we were happy. We were like, okay, prophesy over us. And so we ran, and they weren't just from Bethel or Iris or they were from everywhere. They were from all over, and they were all just hunting for treasure in Glendale. And so the intensity and the emotion of what the expectations just off the hook. So
Come on.
I feel
amazing.
like something's going on.
Yeah, because Lou, I love what Lou says, Lou Engel, who's organised all this, the Azusa Now thing. He said, we've got to fly united. And he was specifically talking about all the denominations coming together. Now, I can remember in Africa, like when we first started Iris Media, 4 or 5 years ago, you had the vision of the net and all of us coming together and all the different mission organisations coming together, flying united, so to speak.
And I really felt that today, even in the city, and the people I was meeting with were from different countries and different places. And I remember, this is really Iris personal stuff, but we were praying for the network for Iris. Like, what is Iris Global? What are we about? And I remember we all just got wrecked. That's our term. You know, we know what it means, but we just got touched by Holy Spirit and we fell under the table. And it was just a classic, as you do. And it was like the Lord showed me we were just this little tiny piece of the net. Wow. And here we were looking for what are we about as a movement? Who are we? And the Lord was saying, you're just that little piece. And he showed me that little piece of the net. But if we weren't there, then some of the people that were meant to, know God, everybody needs to know God, they would fall through.
Exactly.
But
There'd be a hole in the net.
Yeah, there'd be a hole in the net. And so our little piece, our little podcast, our little piece, our little whatever it is we're about does matter. But it really matters when we all come together.
Wow.
So we become this network and we care about each other. And I was with people from older denominations and different streams, and we all just have to come together and say, hey, we love each other. Let's care about the poor of the earth. Let's care about orphans, widows, the lost, the sick, the dying. Let's just come together and show the world that we love each other.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of what Jesus said. They'll know we are Christians by our love.
Right.
And it's, how can you love each other when you're not together and side by side?
And love has to look like something. So I'm excited about just the energy right now. People coming together. It's awesome.
Does it feel significant that it's happening in California for you, being from California and coming back?
Yeah.
And thinking you might never come back to California, and all of a sudden 100,000 people passionate about God are meeting in Azusa Does that feel significant at all, or does that remind you of the Jesus People movement when you were younger?
It today reminded me of the Jesus People movement. I was at the very tail end of it. So very, very end, kind of the last few years of it. And you couldn't go anywhere without people stopping you in the streets and just showing love. Like people would randomly, if you were hungry, there were a lot of drug addicts at the time, a lot of people displaced, homeless. You know, there was this whole revolution where young people in America were just freaked out by how crazy everything was. And they were just, we need something real. We need something more. And Jesus really just crashed in.
Wow.
And everybody shared his love and they took care of each other. And that's what I felt today. I felt like people were shining. There was this random girl, I met her, Daisy, sitting next to us, and because people kept stopping and talking to us and hugging us, and they were from everywhere. They were from all over the world.
Good.
She was like, "Who are you people?" Wow. And I went over and hugged her,
Weirdly
and she said,
affectionate.
"Yeah." She like, "Who are you?" And I went and hugged her, and she says, "Oh, you're huggers." And it just like brought it just, yeah,
Yes.
we're huggers. We love, and we're in love with people, and we're in love with Jesus, and it was powerful. And for me, when I left California, Dad and I left.
When?
We left in 1980. We got married.
Gosh.
We went to lunch once. We got married.
Hang on, when were you born, Christy?
1987.
87, and
Wow.
Elisha, who helped put this
Yeah,
together,
when was
was
he born?
82.
82.
And so we left in 80, and we said, we're never going back. You know, we're never going back.
One-way
And
tickets, was it? I heard.
One-way ticket, $30.
Gosh.
And
Is it
Hang on.
true?
What would you think if Christy was going to do that today?
I would say go for
yeah.
it. I would say go for it.
Would you?
Yeah.
So you recommend this to 20-something-year-olds who want to be missionaries?
I
Just go. One way, $20.
I
Sure.
actually think you need to hear Holy Spirit. So
That makes sense.
But back then, we thought it was evil to have anything. And
Right.
now my theology's shifted on that, where if God's blessing you, it's so you can bless more people.
Yeah, because people get hung up on that still, don't they?
We were really hung up on it. It's like we raised Crystalyn and Elisha in the slums. They were raised on top ramen. It's a miracle you turned out like this.
I
mean,
love top
In
ramen.
Australia,
She still
we
loves
call them two-minute noodles.
It's a comfort food for me.
I know she still eats it. I come over, I cook it for
Yeah,
Christy.
I get
She's
healthier
hungry.
top ramen now.
I know, if I get top
Yeah.
ramen out of the cupboard,
Non-preservative kind.
Christy
You
will
could get
always
it
say yes.
without the
You
MSG.
can get it at Whole Foods these days.
Okay.
And add lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, and a little bit of fresh garlic.
There you go. When we prayed for an egg to put in her top ramen.
She still has the egg.
Yep.
She loves an egg.
Yeah, that's
in
an
her
Asian
top
thing
ramen.
from my dad.
It's
Oh,
like,
yeah, of course, Chinese.
but
noodles,
we
noodle soup.
you know, she turned out okay. I think our journey of being poorer than the poor was really awesome for us. And so for your generation, I say to get rid of the entitlement spirit is awesome. Like,
Wow.
you know,
That's
whether
huge.
whether you're eating in a 5-star or you're eating under a bridge, just be grateful for food and
Wow,
share.
that's great.
You know, just share. Whatever you do, just share. And so I
Because that can be a
say,
stumbling block for people, can't it?
Yeah, and
If it's too poor or too rich,
or they're like,
people can get
what's
hung up
right?
either end of the spectrum, can't they?
I know billionaires who are more passionate for Jesus than anyone I know. I just met some people in Asia. One guy, he's a multi-billionaire who
Gosh, you can't
builds a
judge, can you?
hospital a week. A hospital a week. He builds schools and hospitals. He built his own massive church that's full of Holy Spirit, full of the presence, and he just has an anointing to create wealth. And I thought, wow, I have so judged people, and
Yeah,
God's
me
just
too. I
ripped
mean-
it out of me. And I thought, he's just a beautiful man of God. And I started realizing it's just a journey that we're
Yeah.
all on, and it's not a matter of what you have or don't have, whether you go to the mission field with tons of money. It just matters that you go, that we all go, whether it's across the street
Yeah.
or around the world, that we just go, whether we eat top ramen or filet mignon, you know, that we just go and we love people.
Yeah.
And so we've been on this journey
You tell us-
36 years.
You tell us about
you know?
what the journey of getting to the place. What happened to come out of that mindset where you felt like you had to have nothing? I'm sure Christy was very grateful for this transition.
It was
But
after
it's
she was
okay.
grown up. You know, we
So
didn't.
what happened to change? What happened?
Well, what happened? It probably happened when I was reading Ephesians, and my dad. I'd led my dad to the Lord. It was so awesome.
Oh my gosh, what does that feel like?
That was the best. I mean, he was ordained at 72. And you remember Papa was, he was just such a loving man, so full of life, and always taught us about a spirit of excellence and love and kindness. But he wasn't born again.
Yeah.
And Roland would always say he's more kind by nature than most people by grace. He really was. He just instilled things into me even before he was born again. But what happened when he passed away, my mom started saying, well, one day you're going to inherit this house. And we're like, we don't want you to die. You know, obviously you don't want your parents to die.
No.
And then when my mom passed away, I was left with this strange situation of we left Laguna Beach,
That's where you grew up?
where we grew up,
Yeah.
right? And we left California, and I thought,
Let me just tell you, Laguna Beach, for everyone, Laguna Beach is fantastic.
Yeah,
it's beautiful beaches.
It's so pretty.
Stunning.
It's right on the ocean. It's private beach. And it's like I left and I put judgment in my heart. And so my sister and I inherited the house. And so I was like, oh, crud. This is bad. Like, I need to sell it and give it to the poor. And that's the first thing I was going to do. And I heard, like, God just laugh at me. Literally. He's Daddy God. You know, he laughs at you. And he said, your sister lives in that house. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, yeah,
I
what are you gonna
can't
do?
sell it.
Turf her out in the street.
So, yeah, I can't just toss her out. And we are always, Iris, we always need money. We feed the poor. We feed dying kids. We work in famine zones.
And hang on, you've never asked for money
Well,
in 30 years, have you?
we're not beggars.
No.
You know, other people
I just
get
find
up, they ask for
just
offerings.
as a side note, that's, yeah. I mean, you receive offerings, but you don't ever ask.
We don't like,
in
please,
30 years, you've never
please
asked
give,
for money.
please give, please give. But we thank people because I mean, obviously feeding 20,000 kids a day, you need a bizarre amount of money, educating them all of that. So
Exactly. For
so
those
it's
of
like
you who don't know, I mean, Iris Global, I mean, you've how
36
many
spaces.
around the world?
Yeah.
And how many countries?
22 nations.
22 nations. And also, how many churches have been planted?
Over 10,000.
Over 10,000 churches.
Yeah.
Just for you guys who don't know what's...
So
Iris
I was
Global
there, and this would happen. God spoke to me really clearly. He said, turn around and bless. Now, our house, my dad always said, we're the poorest of the rich people. He always said that to me.
I love that.
We're the poorest of the rich people on this block. So, like, whatever. But, you know, our house isn't the big mansion. It's just the normal size Laguna on the... Anyway, I was going through this conflict in my heart, like, what am I going to do? Oh, crud, this is bad. I don't know what to do. And all this conflict in my heart. And the Lord said, turn around. I was walking on the beach, and he said, turn around and bless the neighbors the neighbors are all multimillionaires. And I said, I don't want to. It was terrible. I had a bad attitude. I said, I don't want to. One of them made my mom move a pipe 6 inches, and it was $180,000. I'm like, how do you bless people that do that? And the Lord said, I want you to turn around and bless them. And so I turned around and I started to bless them, and God started to shift my heart. Wow. And it's not like we're not a lushu. That's a word we use in Mozambique. Not a lushu bunch. We're not an extravagant, like our offices are all simple. Our houses are simple. The way we live is simple. Our salaries are low. We're not a lushu bunch, but judgment on people that have really affects you. It's not right. You
yeah.
need to bless people and where they are and their journey and what they have. And so I want to say to your generation, don't be entitled. Don't have that selfish spirit.
Yeah.
But whatever it is God wants to bless you with, just share. And I want to say share more. And as soon as I started blessing the wealthy, the Lord started allowing me to make friends with people who had resources. And it wasn't making friends to get money from them, even though we need bizarre amounts. It was making friends just because they need friends too.
Yep.
And so God ripped judgment out of me. He ripped the judgment I had for California out of me. Because if you judge California in your heart, then you can't reach California.
Exactly.
If you judge the wealthy, you can't reach the wealthy.
Wow.
If you judge the poor and say they don't care, they're just poor and they're lazy and they don't do anything and they're just welfare lazy, you can't reach them.
Gosh.
They don't want to be projects. So I think the thing I want to say is just don't judge.
Whoa.
Just stop judging. Stop judging and start sharing.
Wow. So
Whether it's with your words or your resources or anything you have, stop judging, start sharing.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to take everyone back to that moment where you said you showed up. You guys started out. How did Iris exactly start? Was it in Indonesia? When you say you took a one-way ticket after you married a man who you had one date with, is that really true? Is that how it happened?
Yep.
All right, it's kind of crazy.
We did pray together. I was director of ministries at SCC, which is Vanguard University now. And so we did pray together. We sat and prayed, but we only went to one lunch. And then we had a ministry trip in Hawaii where we went to a dinner, but it was kind of thrown in. So, yeah.
And then when you get on a one-way ticket to Indonesia, what happens on the other end when you're two people, you're passionate about God, you feel called to the nations? What does that look like when you show up? And
my goodness.
You have $20.
Well,
and I mean, did you have a team there already? Were you going to an organization? Was that when Iris started?
Well, Iris started, it used to be called Rainbow because that was before the name kind of became a conflicted name, which means Iris means rainbow in Greek. So it is the rainbow that surrounds the throne of God and the covenant with God. And it was talking about really Ezekiel 1, the rainbow surrounding the throne, Revelation, the rainbow around the throne, that we would be the people that would be super close, that we would be different colors. So all of us are unique. Like Crystalyn and I, our family, we're blood, we're, this is my daughter, I love her to bits, but we're different and we're all different. And so each person has a color, a way to shine. And so I was in Crawley, UK at YWAM base, and I was just seeking the Lord and was out in the forest, and he told me to start Iris, and that it would be about everybody being who they are called to be, and only when we came together, again, like the net, like Ezekiel 1, and we were all allowing ourselves to be who we were called to be, unique, different colors, different giftings, that we would come together and God would shine through us and reflect from us. And so 1979, the Lord told me to start Iris, and so after we got married, we officially started it. But going to Indonesia, it was Mel Tari, who is still an amazing evangelist, who was best man in our wedding.
Mel.
Yeah, we got to get him in for a podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
But Papa Mel, he said, come to Indonesia, and I'm doing a big stadium meeting. And we didn't have enough money. All our wedding gifts, we said, we don't want any gifts. We just want we wanted luggage, and we wanted money for our tickets. So we were $500 short. And Mel said to Roland, he's an awesome photographer, he's the best. He just said, hey, I got $500 if you can do the photography for the stadium. So we're like, yes, we got the money. $30, $500. So we got our tickets and we got off the plane and no one picked us up, and then somehow we called and we found somebody Mel knew. And they drove us by American Express, and they said, you can cash your traveler's checks there. We're like, oh,
What?
Okay, thank you.
How by faith
Awesome.
traveler's checks.
So we didn't even we had nothing, and I'll never forget this stadium meeting. Mel got in there, and it was full. The stadium was jammed, and I was 20 years old.
Wow.
And Mel just looked at me and said, I think you need to speak. And he gave me the mic and said, you speak to the stadium.
Wow.
And so that was how I started. I started in stadiums. And
Wow.
yeah, kind of the rest it's a long journey. It's an amazing journey. But
the Rainbow Productions,
yeah.
You started out performing as well.
I was a
interested in
ballerina. So I was in a Newport Institute of the Arts ballet company and had been asked to go back to Lucerne Ballet Company, and the church had told me I couldn't dance. It was a sin.
Gosh, another
But
conflict.
then, another conflict. So I laid down my toe shoes, but then God gave it back, and He said to dance for Him, and I danced around the world for maybe 4 years. Danced around the world. So I would put on my point shoes and I would create dance dramas, and Roland would do the backdrop, and all these performers from other countries, so Indonesia, Philippines, Hong Kong, they would play the other parts. So we would do these productions. So we're really coming back to our media roots now. And then I would just share a message, and thousands of people would come to know Jesus. So it's been awesome. But we slept everywhere. We slept we slept literally everywhere in little tiny rooms with 8 people. And we just, we ate top ramen, popcorn, iced tea. Elisha was that was it. We had iced tea and popcorn, a few eggs.
I was curious about that because you mentioned Elisha. It's my older brother. I became a mom last year. You're welcome.
Yes.
Made you a grandma. And
so excited.
That's given me a different perspective on what that must have been like having kids on the mission field. And in that case, you were incredibly pregnant, right, when you left Indonesia, or you weren't sure where you were going. And I know there was a story where you were literally on the curb in Hawaii, pregnant, and you guys have lived this life, like, just following the Lord, not knowing where you're getting what you need next, from where, and you're 8 months pregnant, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. So what was that even like? Because it was the two of you, but then...
Were you freaking out? Or were you...
I just love Jesus so much.
Wow.
And I just knew, and Dad knew too, like He was going to provide. I was more worried. This is really, I'm really being honest here. I was more worried about my mom. That's kind of a funny story. Because my mom...
Well, she was worried about you. Is that what you mean?
She just didn't understand. They weren't Christians yet. So,
Gosh.
So they were like, how can you live like this? Like this lifestyle where you're so poor and you don't even know where you're going to put your child, and you don't have a crib, and you don't have any money, and you don't have food, and I was so nervous that my mom was going to see how we lived. That was probably more of my concern than how Elisha was going to be born, or you were going to be born. I knew God would provide, but I just didn't want my mom.
What your family was going to think.
My family, yeah. It's like, because
you're first generation. You're first generation Christian, hey?
Born again, yeah. First generation born again. And I I was really nervous. So that story is super cool because
What led you to sitting on that curb?
So
what was the situation there?
the situation was this church in Hawaii, this awesome little church in Haleiwa, north coast of Oahu. They had bought us insurance for $30 a month.
Oh, medical insurance.
Yeah,
Which you have to have in
$30
America.
a month.
Yeah.
It was so cheap back then. Gosh, wouldn't that be great if we had that again? Anyway,
Yes.
we were in Asia when Elisha was going to be born, and we had this $30 a month insurance. So you had to have the baby in Hawaii
Because it's the US.
because it was Hawaiian insurance.
Yep.
Because it was super cheap, and you didn't get to choose your doctor or anything. So it was like we had to get to Hawaii, and I think I was 8 months pregnant. 2 times this happened to us.
Yeah, you have a
8
habit of
months.
moving countries when you're 8 months pregnant.
Yes.
Which is not the way I would do it,
So
but
same thing
It's
happened
not,
with you,
and you're
huh?
not even supposed to be on the plane.
Where were you born?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Come on.
Yeah, so I was,
We're in international waters now.
and we just had to get to Hawaii somehow, and we just had no money. I can't remember how we got there.
So from Bali, you had to get to Hawaii. Were you in Bali?
We were in Bali, yeah, and we had to get to Hawaii, and we just arrived in Hawaii 8 months pregnant and sat on the street curb at the airport, and Roland and I are just holding hands and we're just praying, oh God, oh Jesus,
I wish I had a picture of that. I
Oh,
can actually see it right now.
you know.
crazy.
I might have been 7.5 months, but I think I was 8. I was like,
So definitely
we had
showing.
nothing. Oh my goodness, we had nothing, and we had everything because we had Jesus.
Come on.
And we're just like, oh God. So somehow, again, YWAM, back in the story, we called some friends, and there was this place called the Crisis Center. Now, they were so sweet to us. They said, we know you're not in crisis. Well, we were.
Ironically.
We're like, we
actually
know
are in
you're not in
crisis right now."
crisis, you guys, because it was really for drug addicts. We weren't drug addicts, thank God, but we were
Just
in,
Jesus addicts.
Yeah, we were in crisis. They were like, we have a room. It was like 8 by 10 room. And it was full of roaches, and I still hate roaches to this day. I hate them. And they were like, you can stay here. And they had food from the food bank, and they said, you can, counsel some people. And so we were just so grateful. And Roland was trying to find work, and he couldn't find any work. And I was so pregnant, who would take me to, so at 8.5 months by then. And so we were in this little room, and I was just dreading, oh God, oh God, oh God, my mom's going to see. And I remember going to Salvation Army
Come on, the Salvos.
with 15 cents and
Cents?
15 cents and buying a blanket, and that was it. I mean, we are giving our life for this gospel, and we trusted him. And Roland had applied to everywhere, anything, 7-Eleven, anything. He could not get work, and we had no money. And well, we didn't have none. We had this 15 cents, and I bought this blanket, and we pulled out a drawer, and we were going to put Elisha in this drawer. And I was worried about the roaches, though,
Oh my goodness.
And so I had
crazy.
this 15-cent blanket, and I just worshiped, and I trusted Jesus.
Come on.
And we went to this church, a meeting with this, and it was First Assembly in Honolulu, Hawaii. And we were in the back of the church, and this guy named Dick Mills was prophesying. And Dad and I were way in the back. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I had gone into labor, and it was a false labor. And I was like, my mom's going to see this. This is so bad. And I thought it's going to bring...
that the mother is the greatest fear in this
It
situation.
really was.
That's amazing.
Oh my goodness! Because I thought it's gonna bring disgrace, on the gospel. Like, we told her,
And she didn't get
God
it.
provides. We told my dad, God provides, and yet we were in this situation. And then it was so cool what happened. Dick Mills points to us and he said, you two come up, stand up here. And he said, within 1 week, you're going to have everything you need. Within 1 week, you're going to have all you need.
And this guy didn't know
He didn't know
Mills?
anything. He didn't know we were living in the crisis center and had a 15-cent blanket. And we're going to put our firstborn in this drawer. We were going to keep it open.
That's good.
We're going to keep but I figure you could put a child in a drawer, keep the drawer open with this blanket I had. And I somehow got one onesie at Salvation Army. And the guy just like pointed us out. And he said, within 1 week, you're going to have everything you need.
Wow.
And
that's a miracle.
We believed it. We just believed this prophet. And so this is our journey, 1982. And we just went back to the crisis center. We got a call from Honolulu First Assembly. Roy Sapp was the pastor. He's in heaven now. And he just said, and his wife's name, we called her Sister Sapp, bless her heart, Sister Sapp. She didn't know us. And this is where, where just the body, where I want your generation who has more,
Yeah.
Maybe you guys have stuff. You have a home. You're in a different situation, which makes me really happy. I'm so thrilled about it. I love it.
The mother's happy.
I love it. But I want you to remember this heart and this spirit of just what it meant when a lady called me. The pastor's wife called, and she didn't know us from anything. And she said, we want to give you a baby shower.
Wow.
Well, they didn't know me. Why do they want to have a baby shower? They don't know me. And they invite me to this beautiful house in Hawaii. And I'm now 9 months pregnant, and I have nothing, and they don't know I have nothing. Or maybe they found out, I don't know. And they gave me this crazy, beautiful, spirit-filled baby shower. Wow. And they gave me things, clothes and blankets and it was so awesome. And then they gave Roland a job doing their media. For their media department.
Gosh, media again?
Yeah,
Come
media
on.
again.
Irish media.
And then
started a lot longer than 4 years ago.
It was started 36 years ago, And then they said, somebody called the next day and said, we wonder if you could do us a favor. And the way they said it, that's also important. Like how when you give to the poor, we were poorer than the poor. When you give to the poor, don't make them feel like projects. They didn't make us feel like projects. They said, we want to give you a party. We want to have a baby shower. They didn't say, oh, you poor thing, you just have a blanket,
we'll see
you
what
lazy
we can do.
person.
Maybe we can do something for you.
No, they gave us a party.
So
How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And these guys who were amazing singers, African-American couple, they said, could you please help us? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? We'll do it, whatever. Sure, we'd love to help. They said, could you please watch our house for us? Could you just house sit for us? And we just have to go to the mainland, and we want you to just take care of our house. And
come on.
We said, sure.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
A bit
A
bigger than 8 by 10.
2-bedroom
Bit bigger than 8 by
condo.
10.
A 2-bedroom, in an apartment building.
Come on, Jesus.
And the day before they asked, I had already gone into labor, and it was a false labor. And my mom was going to come. And so it was like, oh, Jesus. And they said, could you please so now I've gone into false labor. I'm about to give birth to Elisha.
So you're the eldest out of you and your sister?
Yeah, I'm 11 months older.
You're about to turn your parents into grandparents here.
Right.
So this is significant
First
for
time.
Netta
Right.
and your dad.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're, they had money.
And they're back in
they
Laguna
think
Beach.
we're nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
And they think we're crazy being Christians
This is
and
crazy.
ministers
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just crazy.
Haven't got a grid.
Yeah, just like, you people are nuts. And so we walk in. Someone gives us the key. We walk into this place, and
How did that feel?
2-bedroom, fully furnished. The second room is a completely decked out, incredibly beautiful nursery. I go into labor and give birth to Elisha the next day, and my mom shows up, and there's the nursery.
It's all there.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, "This is
Mum's
nice.
taking
Mom's
care of-
happy.
This is nice."
I've been working on this for weeks.
And we're just
In
like,
the spirit.
we're just like, yeah, whoa. And then someone gave us a Lincoln Continental to drive.
Oh my gosh,
and
so you got the car and the house.
Please, yeah. So we got the job, the car, the nursery, the house, everything. And we were there for like 9 months before we went back. And before we went back, so we were mission pastors, and Dad did the media. And then with you, it was even crazier.
Yeah, if you can imagine.
Hong Kong?
No, we were in Bali, Indonesia.
You went back to Indonesia as missionaries.
We were in.
No way.
Yep.
I didn't know you went back there.
Oh yeah, we went straight back to Asia. We were mission pastors, and that church was just awesome. They still support us to this day.
The church in Hawaii?
Yeah, they've been supporting us for.
Gosh,
for
we've got to visit there. Next time we
34
go,
years.
if we ever have holidays in Hawaii, we've got to go visit this
Yeah,
church.
they're just
Absolutely.
Clayton Coe, Pastor Clayton Coe. He was in our home group back then, and I love home groups. I really think everyone should have groups that they relate to, and he was in our home group. He's now the senior pastor, and they've just supported us for 34 years now.
Wow, relationship.
Awesome.
Huh?
Relationship.
The power of
We still have
relationship, eh?
friends from that time.
It's crazy.
So cool. But we were back in Indonesia, and you were going to be born, and we were going to name you Katut. So it's a good thing. Because we were always
Crystalyn Kotzur. You should have kept it for a middle name.
Katut.
Crystalyn
Because
Kotzur. I like that.
My
in
name was a great
Indonesia, they
save.
always they named them the name this for number 1, number 2, and we were always involved in the culture. So it's a good thing you were born in Hong
So
Kong.
that means number
Very
2,
good.
Kotzur.
She was almost Katut.
Whoosh.
Whoosh, Katut. So I was now 8 months pregnant, and they decided they didn't want any believers in Indonesia, in Bali. So all missionaries, there were only 3 couples, less than 1/2 of 1%.
the government?
Yep.
No way.
Less than 1/2 of 1% Christian at the time. I've just been back. It's so awesome what's happened there. So I'm now 8 months pregnant.
So they kicked you
Elisha's
out of the
5.
country.
They gave us 48 hours to leave.
Gosh, that's a real...
So deja vu. We're back
Man,
to
that's
this
like-
thing. I am out to here, and I'm like, oh Jesus. And I remember
So only what you can pack
this
in a
is
suitcase.
embarrassing, but I had prayed for like 9 months for this refrigerator. It was only this big, but we were so poor still. We didn't have
You didn't have a car, did you?
we didn't
This
have
whole
a car.
time? No car. This
12
whole
years,
time.
except that brief time where we had that
The
Lincoln.
Lincoln. Come on, in Hawaii.
Oh, we did have a dragon wagon roach coach once. We called it. It had a hole in the floor and everything.
Back
but,
here in the US?
no, in Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
Yeah, before the
Before the Lincoln.
But we had 12 years of no car.
God.
So we were just prayed for this fridge, and we had led a lot of people to the Lord, and finally I spoke Indonesian and was really
Oh,
happy
that's
there,
amazing.
thinking we're never leaving till we get to Africa. But anyway, they gave us 48 hours to leave, and they actually had guns at Dad, and and we had 48 hours to leave, and we had nowhere to go.
Indonesia got like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was intense, and I was so grieving over the fact that I'd learned the language and now I have to leave, and over this refrigerator that I had just gotten it. It was such an excitement to have this little fridge, because we were so hot and so thirsty.
Oh yeah, cold water is so.
And just
When you're
cold
Mozambique, how good
water.
is cold water in Mozambique?
Oh,
Let me tell you,
Jesus,
Mozambique is hot.
just
Christy
cold
knows.
water.
It's like the best thing ever.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I cut you off.
48 hours to leave, and So then
What happened to the fridge?
well, we gave everything to some guys from Singapore that had gotten a visa. We just gave everything we had to them. And the cheapest place we could find to get to was Hong Kong. And Roland's
Oh my gosh.
Roland's parents were missionaries in Hong Kong. He's 4th generation missionary.
Oh yeah. Because Roland's first language he spoke as a kid was Chinese. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up
You have amazing parents. That's
we went to the Korean Air. We heard that because so many people were Christians in Korea, they gave discounts to missionaries. So we went to Korean Air and said,
because that was Yonggi Cho's time.
yeah,
The
it
church
was
booming there.
Cho's time. So we just went. We somehow got a ticket to Korea. We went in the Korean Air office, and they gave us half price just because we were missionaries.
Oh my
And
god.
we put it. We didn't have
Thank
money.
you,
We
Jesus.
put it on our credit card. We must admit, but we had 48 hours to leave. We had no money,
How
so
did you get credit cards?
we had
You had them
had
from
a car
years ago.
from Roland had a job before
Oh yeah.
we
Right.
left for the mission field,
Yeah.
so he had credit, but we didn't use it unless it was an emergency, which it was.
This was, yeah. That qualifies.
You're gonna get out.
That
or you're
qualified.
Probably gonna get shot.
Yeah, so that's what we did. We got on a plane, and Roland's parents let us stay in their little tiny apartment.
Oh my gosh! So Roland's parents were there.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong.
That's how otherwise we would have been home.
Can you remember?
Yes, they were missionaries there. My
Yeah.
earliest memories are from Hong Kong.
With your grandparents?
I don't remember them there. No. How long were they there? The whole
They
time?
were there. They were there the whole time. But Crystalyn learned. She spoke perfect Cantonese and wrote perfect characters.
Oh my gosh.
She spoke Cantonese
Yes.
perfectly, just like English.
Gosh.
Yeah, and went to Chinese school.
There was another issue, though, besides having to move when you're 8 months pregnant again,
Yeah,
which is
twice.
crazy enough in itself.
Gosh.
You were also incredibly sick this time, right?
And I didn't know how sick I was.
Morning sickness?
No, this is the cool thing. All things work together for the good. It's not just some religious term in the Bible.
Come on.
All things work together
Thank
for
you.
the good.
Wow. I
To
received
those
that.
who love
That's
the
good, Heidi.
Lord
Wow.
and are called according to his purpose. Because here I am,
Thank you, Jesus.
sobbing over leaving Indonesia. I mean, I needed people to help me on the plane. I'm just a mess.
Yeah, so you're brokenhearted that because you felt called to Indonesia. So you're
Oh, yeah.
grieving.
I'm-
How many years had you invested in Indonesia?
Well, we'd been come and gone, but
Yeah.
at that time we'd been there 1 solid year,
Yeah.
and I was fluent in Indonesia.
Yeah, and you've been there previous time too.
Right, and so I was
So
just
you were
like,
invested.
I was
and you
in-
had to pull out.
yeah,
Pull the roots
and
out.
I didn't want to have to learn Cantonese, and I didn't want to
And you
leave the
just learned
people I
language.
loved,
Yes.
and so I was
Totally understandable.
and thinking, God, like, what are you thinking? Well, you could do whatever you want, and why is this happening to
Yeah, you
us?
could have
You know,
easily
like you
made a
can
way.
turn the hearts
Exactly, of kings.
and so I'm just sobbing and crying and probably a little bit ticked at God. You know, like, why would this happen again? And I don't want to be in Hong Kong, and I'm anyway. Got to Hong Kong, and I was puffy, like just blowing up like a balloon. So they took and
What,
they
like
had
taking on fluid, like,
fluid, a huge amount of fluid,
Oh my
and they
God.
took me to the hospital.
and that's dangerous for flying too, isn't it?
Yeah, and in Hong Kong, you see, they have this socialized medicine. Thank God. So, because we didn't have,
Because it's an English colony.
we still
probably.
had that $30 insurance.
Yes,
so
because it was still under England, probably.
yeah,
So
so
you
we
had
went to the
English medical
hospital.
system.
'Cause- and they tested me. I had severe toxemia. They said your life and your baby's life are in total danger. You could have both die. And had I not been kicked out of Indonesia, Crystalyn and I wouldn't be here right now. Because we were both at the very
Oh my
last.
God.
They said it's so severe. You probably had 24 hours,
Gosh.
and you would have been dead, both of you. And
Oh my
And
lord!
so-
Unless you'd left Indonesia, that is like
so God literally and Indonesia back then in Bali, there was no medical care like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even
That
have a
probably would've
doctor
been
once. I
fairly
had no
backwards
doctor.
compared to Hong Kong.
I had no doctor.
Oh my God.
I had never been to a doctor
No
since
scans,
I got
no
pregnant.
ultrasounds.
Nothing. I was just real,
No knowing the sex of your baby.
nothing. And so God literally turned it around, and I ended up learning Cantonese and planting a church in Hong Kong. And Roland translated scripture for the Lisu tribe. He made characters for them. And
So did Roland know the language when you got back? Was that?
he knew Mandarin.
He knew Mandarin.
But I learned Cantonese.
Ah, okay.
And it was just a miracle. And Crystalyn was born healthy, and God saved our lives.
Thank you, Jesus.
And 4th generation in Asia.
Right, born in Asia.
My dad's side is 4 generations have been born in Asia. 3 before me.
Oh, and you were too? How?
Yeah, so
Oh
I ended
my
up born there
gosh.
too.
So that was cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you had a vision. You've talked about your years in Asia. You had a vision specifically that you've often spoken about it, but I'm just curious about the journey from Asia to, you felt like the Lord spoke to you about Asia, England, and Africa. So when did you know that it was time to move on to the next thing? How did that happen? Was it natural? Was it something you had to pray through? Was it very obvious to you when it was time to keep going?
Well, when I was 16, I had that incredible experience. When I was in this little tiny Pentecostal church where I was living on that Indian reservation, where I became a born-again Christian. And I was in this little Pentecostal church, and my hands were lifted, and God literally just descended on me. I mean, His glory just came, and I was...
Well, you literally felt God.
Oh, I felt Him. Everything changed in my life. I couldn't hear 2 pianos, one on the right, one on the left. Loud preacher, couldn't hear him. I was in a vision with the Lord. I heard the audible external voice of God for the only time in my whole life. I've been 40 years ministering, and I've never only heard the audible external voice. And He said, you're called to be a minister and a missionary, to go to Africa, Asia, and England.
Wow.
And then Jesus said, you're to be married to me. Kissed my left hand. Oil ran down my arm. My hands were lifted up. I was in this white light. They told me I was there 3 hours. I didn't twitch. I was just frozen there for 3 hours on my knees. Oh, there was just so much glory. So I always knew one day we would go to England. One day we would go to Africa. One day we would go to Asia. And so when I was dating, I would say, if anybody I would date, I'm going to Africa, Asia, and England. I'm a minister and a missionary. Yes. And so when I met Roland, he just said, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. I love missions. I'm a missionary background myself. That's awesome. He was the first one who really got it, So probably why we...
Amazing.
Yeah.
Narrows the field.
It narrows the field way down. So what happened was we were in Asia for 12 years, and you were 4.5, and we knew it was time to move, but I was actually pretty sick. I had an immune disorder, and I couldn't read well, and I was really sick.
And this is after you'd learned Cantonese?
Yeah, I was fluent in Cantonese.
Here we go again. Oh my gosh.
And he's
learned the language.
And I was
and it's time to move.
I wasn't healthy at all.
And sick again. Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I was sick again. Well, I overworked. I didn't know Daddy God. I didn't know Abba Daddy at all. I knew how to work really hard. I knew how to serve God. But I was just driven. I was driven and pushed and
striving.
And I was striving. I had a lot of striving. I thought I was doing it all. Again, if you were holy to be poor, we would be poorer than the poor.
You're right, yeah.
I had judgments on me towards the Western church, just a lot of stuff. But I was doing the best, I could.
and
Roland was doing the best he could. And And
you were called by God, and you were being obedient.
Yeah, everything within us was
Yeah.
obedient, but we didn't know what we know now about Daddy God.
Wow.
We didn't know what we know now about. That's why I'm so happy they have a house. I'm so happy
Yep.
you have a house.
Yeah.
I want everybody to have a house. I want everybody to have a house. I want everybody to have food.
Come on.
I want the poor of the earth to have food and a house. And so we just didn't know that, so many things. So we were there, and I heard the Lord say, it's time to get your PhD. Well, what's that about?
God
For
loves
one
education,
thing,
huh? Come on.
Yeah.
Some people have judgment towards that too, don't they? That's crazy.
I know. A lot of Christians have judgment towards education. But seriously, God said it's time to get your PhD.
Come on.
And he told me where to go. And they'd never had a woman graduate. It's King's College, University of London, in systematic theology.
That's crazy. They never had a woman graduate from that.
From that program. Because you had to be ordained. And, it's number one in my field and in the world at the time. And so it was really hard to get in there. And I was like, God, oh God, if you want me to go, then you're going to get me in. So I just applied. Miraculously, I got in. And so it was time to go to England. And I always thought it would be Africa first, then Asia, then England. Yeah. But instead, it turned out Asia, England, Africa. And then, obviously, the Lord said the nations. But that's a whole nother topic. Yeah, so we were in England for 3 years. And then Crystalyn had a perfect British accent.
From Cantonese
it was beautiful.
To English.
Yeah, so she went from Cantonese to a very posh.
My parents still complain about that.
Yeah.
And I lost that. The worst thing that's happened to us.
Oh.
Now, Heidi,
it was beautiful.
Heidi, you gotta rush off. You're preaching at Todd White's conference tonight.
Yep.
At the Mott Auditorium.
Mott Auditorium.
Another hot spot here in Los Angeles. But before
so
you go,
much revival history.
We're going to come back and we're going to definitely do another podcast with you to finish this story off because it's just incredible. But so much has changed since these early days. What we're talking about. I'm just interested to know what's the same.
Jesus.
What hasn't changed?
Jesus. I'm so in love with Jesus. He's my everything. I want to radiate him. I want everybody to know him. And I know my daddy. I know I'm daddy's girl. And I'm in love with him. I'm in love with my family. I'm in love with Roland. I'm so blessed. I feel like a rich mama, because I have family. And I feel just so grateful. I just feel so grateful, and been 20 years in Mozambique.
Yeah. And
now to 96 nations, preaching this glorious gospel, just sharing the love of God and seeing multiplication around the world. So, Jesus, and I love yielding my life to Holy Spirit, just saying, here I am. Use me. Yeah, I'm a little mama. I don't.
You've totally taught
don't
me
have
that.
any.
You've totally taught me that.
Great talent, but I could say, hey, take what I have and multiply.
Wow.
If I always kind of saw myself, maybe I had the one talent, maybe 1.5 at best, but I didn't bury it. Like whatever I had, I was like, take it, multiply it. Whatever you give me, Lord, I want to multiply it. So my life now, as I travel 1/3 of my time around the world, is really for multiplication. It's so we can go out there and just see other people find out what it's like to know Daddy God, that every orphan can come home to the Father, and that every single person's created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
Right now, I want at this stage in life, I want multiplication. I want all the people listening, all the people just that know Jesus to know how easy it is to live your life for him. Even if it's the hardest thing you can imagine, it's easy because he's worthy, you know?
You said, you're just reminding me of something that you said, and it's about being yielded to whatever the Lord's calling you to, and you are known as someone who's taken in orphans, hundreds and thousands of them. Iris has cared for them in Mozambique, but you said when the Lord called you to Africa, before that you'd never even taught at Sunday school.
Yeah.
And yet, how many orphans and children have been taken care of and brought in? And that's just an example, I feel like, of someone who just said yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the natural thing for you. You'd never done that before.
No.
And that's what you're known for today.
I never thought I'd ever work with kids. I mean, I thought I have my two, and that's great.
So that started in Africa, did it?
Yeah, because the Lord told me to stop preaching in the big meetings in my 20s and move in with the poor and learn about the kingdom of God.
Right.
So did that for 20 years, living with the poorest people on the planet, living in the slums, and working in the garbage dumps and just the streets and all that.
Now that's
and
a missions training school there. That's a 20-year missions training school.
Yeah, and then actually longer than that in it now. But when we got to Mozambique, we're thinking, okay, now I have my PhD, maybe I should be teaching in university or something. And the Lord said, I want you to go sit on the street corner. And so I asked Roland, Dad, if I could go to Mozambique ahead of him because he was still working on his thesis. And he said, yeah, go ahead. So I went a few months before Crystalyn and Elisha and Roland. And I got there. I had enough money for 3 days of food. And I had nowhere to live again. Sitting on a street corner. This street corner theme comes back and back again. I'm sitting on a street corner.
Was it a one-way ticket this time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was sitting on the street corner, and I've got...
I'm going to buy me one of them sometime.
Yeah, I should go for it. Sitting there, and I don't have anywhere to sleep. I've got this truck I call Lazarus. I have nowhere to sleep. They're shooting at people.
Right, because they just finished the Civil War.
Yeah, we need to pray right now because there's all kinds of war going on in the middle of the country right now. Yeah, we need to really pray for peace. Thank you for peace in Mozambique.
Thank you, Jesus.
And I'm sitting there, and it was crazy. And this lady runs up to me, throws keys in my hand. I had 3 days at this Baptist Bible college. They said I could stay for 3 days. So I'm like, oh, Lord, it's the last day, and I have nowhere to sleep. And I'm thinking, I'm going to sleep in my truck. This is not safe. Oh, Jesus. And I see all these starving kids. Just, they're in shredded rags. Like, we still see them at home 2/3 of our life, every day. There they are, shredded rags. And these kids at the time, bloated bellies, shredded rags. I'm sitting on the street corner. And Daddy God says, I want you to learn about the kingdom from the children. They're going to teach you about the kingdom. You learn from the poor, now you're going to learn from the children. Wow. And I said, I don't do children. And he said, you do now. Whoa. You do now. So that's how we started caring for kids. And this little missionary, I knew she was a missionary because she had a bun, flowered skirt, and tennis shoes. And she's running after me.
Your normal outfit, hey, Heidi.
Yeah.
Not.
Yay. I can just be me. So she's running after me, and she just throws some keys. Same thing like those guys in Hawaii.
Yeah, with the Lincoln.
Can you do me a favor?
Gosh.
So she throws keys in my
nuts.
hands, and she says, can you do me a favor? Can you watch my house?
Oh, my God.
So it's revisited.
That's
and
crazy.
I said, sure, yeah, sure. She didn't even know me. But she knew I was a wannabe missionary. And, I've been there 3 days. She didn't know I had no money, no food, nowhere to sleep. And she said, because the Baptists said 3 days in their Bible school. And it was my third day. I had to leave. I had nowhere to go. I had this truck. and my combustível, my fuel was almost at empty. And she said, and eat the food or the rats are going to get it. Seriously?
Do me a favor and eat my food.
She said that
when
to
you've
me.
got no food. That's crazy.
And I found this Mozambican kid named Lazarus, and he said, I think I know where she lives. She didn't give me her address, and there were no street signs.
So you
I
got
just
the keys,
had keys.
and you didn't know. She
It's
didn't
so
tell you.
prophetic.
She didn't tell. Oh my God.
Because we have keys to the kingdom. You know, we have keys. We have access to Daddy's house, but we don't always know how to get there. And we're not meant to have nothing. We're meant to have provision for the poor, provision for children. Like, if my goal for Crystalyn wouldn't be that she would have nothing. That my goal for her would be that she would have a house, that she would have food, that Zoe would have food, that Brock would have food, that they would have what they need. Daddy God has everything we need. He gave us keys, but we just don't know.
Powerful.
We don't always know how to get there. And so this lady gave me these keys, and we went round in this roundabout. This is also prophetic. And my fuel gauge is like it's on red. I have no money. My fuel gauge is on red. There's no street signs. And I have to find this house because I have nowhere to sleep. I have nowhere to sleep, and I have no food. And it's now at the and we're going roundabout. We went around this roundabout like 4 times. And finally Lazarus, I knew about 20 words of Portuguese. He knew about 20 words of English. And finally he's just like, la, and he just points. And he found the house. And I was so exhausted. I walked up the stairs. I hadn't slept because there was shooting in the streets, and my alarm on my truck was going off all the time. So I was exhausted. I was shaky, tired. We get up. I didn't even want the food. So many people want to be hungry for God, but they're just tired. They just need to sleep. They just need to rest. They just need to know, you can just rest. You don't need to always do this or do that, or even eat. We know we had to eat Jesus, drink Jesus, be with Jesus. We got to, but sometimes we just need to rest. We need to soak. So I just fell asleep. And when I woke up the next day, my appetite came back and I was able to eat, the food that the rats couldn't get. And we've been now 20 years in Mozambique, and God has provided every step of the way. There's famine right now, so my heart's really broken. We haven't been beggars. We don't beg. We don't want to beg now, but we do want people to be aware that children are dying of starvation.
Wow, whereabouts in Mozambique?
In central Mozambique. People are eating poison mushrooms, and I just think it's time that thousands of people care, on a consistent basis for the poor of the earth. Whether it's Iris or somewhere else, we're not beggars, we're not begging, we're not saying give or we die, but there are kids who do die. If the Western world, the Eastern world doesn't care. We believe in sustainability. We believe in that, yes, we should make this whole work sustainable. We have farms. Yeah. We have a big farm, but the rain didn't come.
Yeah, and there
right?
are emergencies.
There are right now our bases. There are kids that are hungry. If they don't get an education with Iris, they don't get school at all. If they don't get food, the ones in the center of the nation right now, they literally die, and it's a slow, painful death. And I just want to say that Daddy God cares, and I think most people, if they knew, they would actually care too.
Yeah.
And it's not like it doesn't cost a bomb to feed a child. No. It's like, $1 a day feeds a child. $1.50 educates a child and feeds a child a day. I used to think I couldn't say that. I couldn't say that out loud because that would wreck us. That would mean we couldn't give our testimony that we never ask, whatever. But it's like, hang it. I want to say we need to care. We need to care for the kids in the sex trade industry in Asia.
Yeah.
We have bases in Asia.
Yeah.
You know, we're rescuing kids out of the sex trade industry. And I think your generation cares. I think your generation cares. I know that God cares. And it was like Mother Teresa said, it's not that God doesn't care, it's that the body doesn't see. You know, that they don't have eyes to see. So I want to say, you know, open your eyes.
Wow.
There are children
That's powerful.
that are starving right now, and there are also widows, and there are people crawling on their hands and knees, and they need food, they need education, they need water, and they need Jesus. But the people I'm talking about right now in Iris, in some of our churches, they have met Jesus. They are believers.
Yeah.
They want to work, but there's no work right now. They want to grow their own food. They planted, but there's no crop. So I say, I want to do like a benefit concert, where people, United Pursuit, where Brock's one of the leads in that. Her husband, amazing singer.
Incredible.
Julie Myers, I believe Jake Hamilton will come. I mean, some of these awesome guys, bands.
Yeah.
I want to do some kind of like a benefit concert to feed the children.
Awesome.
And just say, hey, but you know, on a monthly basis too, not just once, but on a monthly basis, feed, educate one child. You know, just do something that matters.
Yeah.
And they do know Jesus, you know, but they need food and they need education.
Yeah.
And Daddy cares.
Yeah.
Do we? You know, that's
Wow.
what I do. Do we?
Wow, it's
And
good.
it's not a
good
huge thing.
challenge. Yeah.
And I don't think you have to give up your Starbucks to feed a child, usually, but sometimes you might. Like if it's $50 to feed and educate a child per month, and that means you don't go out to dinner twice a week, once a week, whatever, then actually I think that's okay. You know, I feel the Holy Spirit on that. Like,
Yeah, it's great.
why is it that? But I believe God can provide for both.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't
but
think.
we don't need to be locked into entitlement.
I don't think, but I
Yeah.
do think that if it's one or the other, then we should choose caring for a really hungry kid,
Yes.
sending him to school.
It's more blessed to give.
It is, and it's not begging.
No.
Like I'm just saying.
No, that's wonderful.
Maybe people just don't know, and so they don't know.
Exactly. And we are in a bit of a bubble in the West. I mean,
Yeah.
we have our Western blinders on a lot.
Yeah,
so
I was
it's
just
great
at
to-
Americana. There's fountains going. I love
know.
them. I love the fountains. Music, fountains, you know, stores everywhere. It's not that I don't like that. I think
No.
it's wonderful that people prosper.
Exactly.
I'm happy and blessed that people prosper.
Yeah.
I just think we need to share.
Yeah.
And we need to see what God sees. And He doesn't want a child being sold for sex. He doesn't want a child to go to bed starving, hungry. Like when you have kids, you have Zoe.
yeah.
Like I would
Gosh.
do anything to make sure you were fed. I would do
Absolutely.
anything. I would sell anything, do anything, give anything. And so these kids are in front of us. I've held dying kids in my arms. And so I'm really passionate about this. That love has to look like something. It can't just be jabbering. It can't just be words.
Yeah, or good wishes,
It
yeah.
actually has to be sharing. You know, if it's water wells, it has to be water wells. If it's
Yeah.
just caring for one child, just educating one child, or taking care of one widow mama, or one pastor, you know,
Yeah.
training one pastor that'll care for many. I think Daddy God is really passionate about it.
Come on.
So
Yeah,
that's
and
really on my heart
And
right
I
now.
think there's more information if you guys are listening out there in podcast land. That our website, the irisglobal.org. So
Yeah.
irisglobal.org. There's
And
a lot
our
more
Iris
information.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can come visit almost not every base, but 36 bases. They can probably visit 30 of them.
Yeah.
And just come out there and see but just be a part, and pray for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need prayer, and pray for rain right now, that rain would come to Mozambique, to Malawi, where there's drought. Last year we had floods. This year it's drought. So just pray and believe God that we'll be able to keep reaching, the unreached people groups, and get out there and pray for protection and peace. Yeah.
We had a few people submit questions that they were interested in hearing, so I'm just gonna ask you one of those really quick. What would you go back, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 5-year-old self?
My 5-year-old self, I would say...
Yes. Heidi is a 5-year-old.
I would say Jesus is alive, and he loves you, and he has a plan for your life that's going to be so exciting that you should be the happiest girl on the planet.
Yes. Good things in store.
Good things in store. I mean, I love my life. I love my life.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Heidi, would you just release a blessing over everyone listening?
Yeah.
On our
podcast
channel. Wow.
Lord, I just thank you, Jesus, just for time, family time, and just telling stories and just being real. I thank you, God, that I could just share my heart about these kids, because my heart's broken, God, and I thank you that you just could give me a brave heart, because I see them, Lord. I see their little bloated bellies, and I see their sunken in eyes, and I know you're saying give them something to eat. So I thank you, Jesus, that you care, and I thank you that you care about the church in the West that needs fresh bread and the eating crumbs that fall from your table. And I just ask you to give them fresh food, to give them your presence, to give them your presence, God, to give them bread and wine from your side, Lord, to let them know who you are. And Daddy, to let them know the beauty of your love, and Holy Spirit, to just let them yield to you and know you're their comforter. So just hold them and rock them in your arms and be with them. And thank you that we could just be real and share, just share our lives, God. We love you so much, Jesus. Bless them, God.
Wow. Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you for
it's cool,
for being a mama in the natural and in the spiritual.
Literally. Yes. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Love being here.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of our listeners. We'd love to hear any comments or questions that you're interested in us asking any future guests. You can leave them at our comment section in the Iris Global YouTube channel. And until next time.
Ciao.
This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.